Hi everyone, my name is Geraldine and I'm here to present to you today about key operational aspects in building a B2B enterprise sales business model. But before I get started, I just wanted to apologise that I missed the in-person event last week due to illness. And I hope you are getting to watch this after the event and that it's valuable for you. I'm really excited to present this topic. It's something I'm very passionate about and something I'm very excited about. So let's get started. So as I mentioned, I would like to present to you today a playbook for enterprise sales in your business, which I can imagine is something that a lot of you are very interested in and a super important topic as you scale your businesses. But before I get started, maybe let me tell you a little bit about me so you know who you're hearing from today. As I mentioned, my name is Geraldine MacCarthy. For any of you that are English natives, you can probably tell that my accent is Irish and I live in Ireland most of the time at this stage in my life. I started off my career in tech a long time ago now, back in 2006 in Google, just as we were launching operations in Europe. And I started in our Dublin office and also spent time in Poland, but also in the US as we were scaling out Google over that 8-year period through to 2014. And at that stage, I joined Dropbox again, just as we were launching into Europe and also as we were launching our B2B product for the first time. And I was part of the team that led that B2B product into Europe and scaled it across Europe over the last couple of years. And as of last year, I joined Personio, which is a Munich-based business focused on an all-in-one HR solution for SMEs across Europe. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer there, and with that, I lead sales, marketing, and partnerships within the organization. So let me get started and tell you a little bit about what I see as the building blocks for an enterprise sales team. And this is going to form the core of what we're going to talk through today. Ultimately, if you have these blocks in place, you should be successful as you start now, but also as you scale over time. It starts with having the right people in place, having the right systems in place, and then having the right processes in place. And for me, building enterprise sales is really about making all of these three things work in parallel and work for the stage of business that you need for the time that you're at any particular stage of business, and that it evolves over time. So let me talk a little bit more about what I mean with these three pillars. So let's get started. The first deal is always the hardest. It sounds pretty obvious, but when you think about it in a bit more detail, it's that first customer that has put trust in you with their money from their business to pay for your product. And the first deal to come over the line is always going to be the most difficult one to do. And then the next one gets a little bit easier, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. And to do those deals, you need to have the right type of salespeople in place in the early days. The type of salespeople that you have on day one won't be the same type of salespeople that you will have in place in your team in year 5 or year 10 or beyond. And so thinking about the right type of people that you need in those very early days becomes important. They're effectively generalists that can go out and sell your product, but can also bring information back into your teams about what's happening in the market. And one of the most important parts of that information coming back in is the interface between sales and product. The sales team plays such an important role in terms of interfacing into the market and understanding what customers and the market love about your product, but what are opportunities and areas for growth. And so with that sales team, you want them to be able to help shape your product for now and also into the future. That happens by talking to your customers and hearing what their needs are and what they like, and also to be able to give that feedback to product on a regular basis. Now, as you start out in the early days, that interface will be pretty ad hoc and should happen on a very regular basis. As your teams evolve, you probably don't want every salesperson going into talking to every product person and taking them away from their core role of delivering product. And so that structure needs to come in over time, but still thinking about those people who can take the right information from the market, synthesize it into a way that can be digestible into product, and moving it forward is important. And it's a really specific type of skill that you don't get in necessarily larger organizations where it isn't part of their skill set. The next thing I would say that's important for the right type of people to have on your team is the ability to learn fast. And there is very many ways that you can go to market. It's not just about product, but the way that you take the product to market that will inform if you're going to be successful or not. And you'll have many questions in the early days, many things you want to try out to see if they work for us. For example, is a direct model best for us? Are all our marketing channels performing, or do we need to make adjustments in them? Should we be looking at partnerships as a way that we can go to market? And as you begin to work through those things, sometimes they will work for you day one, and sometimes they won't work on day one. But as you think about how your business evolves over time, making sure that you always keep an open mind, that you can go back and review these questions in the future. Just because something doesn't work at one stage in your business doesn't mean that it won't work in the future. That may be because your product has evolved, or potentially the market has evolved around you, or even that you have a different capability within your team that allows you to do some of that stuff. And so taking that learning mindset and opportunity to try things out, to learn what's working and to adopt your business models is important. And that's a really specific type of mindset that you will have in the people that you bring into your GTM team in the very early days. We talk in Personio, and we have been saying this for a very long time. People are the single biggest influencer of success on any business. And that's because when you think about businesses, it's not the businesses that create value, it's the people that are within the businesses that create the value. And with that, it should feel that a team are there together. When a team are winning, that they win together. But equally, if they're losing, they lose together. There's that sense of camaraderie and support for one another, and that they're all in it together and driving towards the same goals. I talk about this often when I'm talking about how you set up compensation plans for teams. Particularly on sales teams, you think about compensation models should be very individually focused. But particularly in the early days where the whole success of the business is driven based on the success of the people that are there, having shared goals where people feel like that they can win together or that they lose together is actually vitally important. And I'm a strong proponent of having team goals for people in the early days to make sure that people are supporting each other and learning from one another rather than going out and trying to divide and conquer. I know many of you might have watched the presentation earlier on last week at Startup Grind about internationalization. And I think there is many approaches to how businesses think about internationalization. I have my own opinions on this based on what I've seen working in the past, and some of them that I'd like to share with you. One of the most important things that we focus on is focusing on the teams that are important for you. And so not just going out and trying to spread yourself too thin too early on, but really focusing on where you think you can win and what are the learnings that you can take from that. So for example, in Personio, we have looked where our HQ is in Munich. And from there, we have expanded our focus across Western Europe. Our intent with that is to go into the markets and to learn from those markets and to take that learning with them and to bring it back into the teams over time. In general, I'm a believer with internationalization of co-locating people as much as possible. So rather than fragmenting people across many different locations, trying to bring them into as few locations as is possible for you in the early days. Of course, as you scale, I'm sure you'll want to get very close to customers and to get that feedback. But in general, what you're learning from the market is relatively similar across all locations. And so taking those shared learnings about the product back in and keeping that centralized rather than fragmenting across markets is really important in the early days to make sure that you can scale a team, that they can learn from one another, and not spend too much time in individual locations and separated without getting the right learnings in place that you need. Then as you scale, of course, beginning to put teams in place can be helpful and can give you more of a competitive advantage. But finding the right time to do this is important to make sure that you don't go too far, too fast. So after speaking about people and how you structure the people that are in place, I'd like to talk about the systems and tools that you use. And for me, I believe that using the right technology can be a source of advantage for how you go out and operate. It can make your teams much more productive. It can give you much more insights around what's happening in your business, and you can make better decisions. But there is a risk that you can put in too many tools too early, or that you get tools that are not integrated together. And so my advice is, as you're thinking about the tool set that you need, first of all, is to project out around what you might need in 1 year from now or 2 years from now, and design backwards. And with that design that you're doing backwards, that you think about how the tools will all work together in concert with one another. Nothing worse than having all of the best of breed solutions in place in your business and they don't talk to one another and you're not getting the value out of them. Those integrations and learnings can be super important, not just to make sure that you get the productive power out of the tools that you're using, but also to make sure that you're getting the insights that you need within your business. Each of you will make individual decisions around the right systems and tools that you need specifically for your business. Of course, the CRM probably sits at the heart of a sales business, and there's a couple of best in class ones out there that you might want to choose. And I would advise you to think about the one that's right for you for right now and for the next 1 to 2 years ahead. You can always change it in the future if your business has outgrown it. And then lastly, I would like to talk to you about having the right processes in place. I can imagine some of you sitting in the room are thinking, processes, that's a big company problem and not something for a startup or a scale up. But actually, in my opinion, having the right processes and putting those in place early on can actually make teams much more effective and much more efficient as they go out to do things. Particularly for a business that is scaling very fast, there is naturally going to be a lot of dynamism around what's happening, what we're doing, and a lot of fluidity around the way that things work. As we talk about that learning and experimental culture and the types of people that you want to have in the business. And if you put the right core processes in the early days, that actually gives you the stability and the structure and the foundations to go out and make more of those experiments and learnings. But to be able to do that from a really solid foundation as opposed to something that's very chaotic that's underneath. And as I wrap up all of these things, when you think about the right people, the right systems, and the right processes, I think one of the most important things in the early days is to have a really hands-on culture. And for me, it's one of the things that really sets apart early stage businesses to more mature businesses and can be a real differentiator in terms of how you go to market. As I said, the first deal is always the hardest, and getting people focused on that and bringing those first deals on board is a key way to get to success in your business and to ensure you're future-proofing where you're going. And so on. This is an example of our hands-on culture in place in Personio. These are photos of Hanno, who's our CEO in the early days of Personio. The one on the right-hand side is him in Berlin, going around on a scooter to talk to some of our customers in Berlin. and down below talking to some of our existing customers that are within the business. Having a business that everybody feels that bringing in business is important to what they do is a real differentiator in terms of how you go to market. And particularly for challenger businesses and for businesses that are going out and trying to do something new, with your customers knowing that you have everybody in your business that is behind the success of the customers can really help you to accelerate bringing in those really hard won deals in the early days and to create a really customer-centric culture that's going to help you not just grow as a business, but to help you build a better product and a better business in the long run. And with that, I hope that I have helped you learn some ways to scale and grow a B2B sales operation. And I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.